Down here at the Pima Air Museum, October 30th,
I did think about it.
2012.
I'll tell you what,
It's
go in and get a
Tuesday.
souvenir cup, get some ice in it, and then it'll be cold for you.
Yeah?
Each one of these engines has, two circles on it. Does that mean it's double the size of a regular engine?
No, 3 times.
Oh,
Those are separate engines?
They're separate engines though.
So you're right, Denny.
so there's actually 8 engines?
8 engines on it. That's a Pan American.
Pat!
Yeah, I've got it. The P3. Fly those, they fly the lab fly.
I wonder where he is. Did he roll up his pants legs in the White House?
That's what we live in. So what you're looking at here, you're looking at longer distance in the B-17, bigger bomb load. You've got you see here,
kind of like saran wrap would in your kitchen. Over here on the your right side are 5 aircraft. These are test aircraft for spray lab. They're hooked up to a weather station, and they keep track of the temperatures, humidity, and all that kind of stuff. Replaced by a different model of the aircraft or a different type of the aircraft. It carries a 20mm Gatling gun and a wide variety of air-to-air and air-to-ground munitions. Down up on the left, you look out there a little ways, you see a bunch of big round cans stacked up out there. Those are engine cans. When they remove engines from the aircraft, they're given a light coat of oil, they're put in that can, they suck the oxygen out of it, and then replace it with dry nitrogen. That keeps the engine nice and fresh for the next aircraft. These bare engines you see sitting out here are engines that are waiting to be destroyed. Most of them are F-111 engines. See a whole bunch more coming up here in just a second. They're waiting to remove the precious metals from those engines first, and then they will destroy those engines. Back in 1965, the Department of Defense decided they wanted one place and one place only to store all Department of Defense aircraft. So you're going to see aircraft from all different branches of the service today during our tour. We're getting ready to make a turn here to start down what we call Celebrity Row. So I'm going to be kind of yanked with allow the pilot and the observer straight down under the aircraft view for better visibility. Had a lot of different sensors on board, but the main sensor they used over the first model ever to come out with the internal gun. Back then they believed that the day of the gunfight was over, and they just weren't putting out aircraft that had a gun on them. And we found out in Vietnam very quickly that we still needed it. It was a Mach 2 aircraft with a crew of 2 pilot, and the Air Force calls a WISO, or Weapon Systems Officer. Notice the boom sticking out the back with the little black wings on it there. If you follow that tube down to that bump underneath the belly of the aircraft, that's where the boom operator lays on his stomach. He looks out a window and he flies that boom into the aircraft receiving the fuel. He's got the best job in the Air Force that I know of. He's the only guy I know that gets paid money to lay on his belly and pass gas.
Sounds like a job for me.
But it's kind of like the Energizer Bunny. They reskinned and re-engined these aircraft so many times, and they're still going to be around with us for quite a while yet. This is the last of the E models that you're looking at here. They're still flying the R and Q models. The helicopters we're passing here, you notice they don't have any rotor blades on them. The materials that make the rotor blades out of nowadays would not hold up very well out here in our Arizona sun. So they're removed from the aircraft, they're stored in wooden boxes in a climate control building. Once Bob gets us around the curve here, we're going to pull over to stop for just a moment. That's done at Hill Air Force Base in Ogden, Utah. But we've been doing it here, all their overflow, for about 3 or 4 years now. And that's the job we're going to do now. Well, they are, but they're way out on the west side. It was used as a test bed aircraft for testing laser weapon systems. Also, if you look over there, you'll see a civilian airliner. It's white with a red stripe down the side. Everybody familiar with Area 51? Well, that's the aircraft that flies out of McCarran Field out of Las Vegas, Nevada, and flies the folks that work at Area 51 back and forth. Coming up on the right-hand side here, you can see 2 ICBM Renner Continental ballistic missiles. The first, the gray one there, is a Titan 1. The second one is a Thor. Those are nuclear-tipped missiles that stood nuclear alert, all underground in silos, all during the Cold War. And they're being dismantled as part of the START treaty agreements, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes. A lot of the aircraft out in front of those missiles are aircraft that have been spoken for by different people. Been using those aircraft for a long time now to supply parts to the current C-5 fleet. And that's what most of these aircraft over here are doing, is being used to supply parts to the current fleets. Over here on your left, you see some F-16s over there. Those aircraft will fly again. Those are aircraft going to friendly foreign governments overseas. Some of these older aircraft you see here have been through what they call DMIL, or demilitarized. and they will be sold off to civilian scrappers. There's about 5 or 6 civilian scrappers that surround A-Mart here that buy these aircraft. You look between the KC-135s right here, you see a B-57 with really, really long wings on it. That wingspan is actually longer than the first Wright brothers flight. That is an RB-57, R standing for reconnaissance, and we sold some F-14s to the Iranian government back when the Shah was in power and they were a friendly foreign government. Well, they're not so friendly anymore, and we don't want them to get any parts of their F-14s. So they got brand new F-14s sitting over there in the desert that they can't fly, and we want to keep it that way. Next up is some of the real early B-1B bombers. They built about 100 of these aircraft. They've reduced the fleet now down to about 60. All the B-1s now have been through part of the START Treaty Agreement where they can no longer carry nuclear weapons. Right here you see some of the real early F-18s, more F-4s. The F-111, that number grew very quickly, and they decided now all the A models will come here to A-Mart. It takes 5.5 acres just to turn one of those airplanes around. Once we get past these H-53s coming up here come from Herbert Field in Florida, where they were flown by the 1st Special Operations Group, the folks who fly those black missions, you know, that nobody talks about. As soon as we get past these aircraft, Bob's going to stop again for just a moment. In 1993, we signed a on flying for years yet to come. Coming up on the right, you'll see some civilian 707s. These are real early model 707s. The Air Force originally wanted to buy them from these companies because they were getting to where the EPA folks and the FAA wouldn't let them fly them anymore. And they wanted them for the engines. But then they realized very quickly, well, that's the same airplane as a KC-135. And right now, each one of those airplanes has yielded over $4.5 million in parts for KC-135s. And we paid $800,000 apiece for them. Not yet been down to the Titan Missile Museum. It's also part of our Arizona Aviation Foundation, which includes our museum. It's one of the very few concessions that we got from the Russians in the 1993 agreements was to allow us to keep that one missile silo as a historical monument and museum. And they built a beautiful new building down there. They start you off with a real nice talk on the Cold War in the conference room with a short movie. They walked around outside and tell you about all the support equipment, how it worked, and then down underground where you can see the missile in the silo. It's a training missile. And into the control room where they walk you through a launch just the way it would have gone had that have happened during the Cold War. So their docents down there are very, very knowledgeable folks. And if you get a chance to get down there and see that, that is really worth your time. If you have not yet been around all of our museum today, we have about 70 acres, and we're right at about 300 aircraft on display now. We have another narrated tour like this one called the Tram Tour. And if you've ever tried to walk around 70 acres, you know how much walking that is. And take a big load off you, and that's about an hour-long tour. We also have 2 hangars that are dedicated to World War II, hangars 3 and 4. Hangar 3 is more towards the European side. They got B-24.
And here they come, the 3 troublemakers.